whenever you find light, you will find shadows, and the brighter light, the sharper the shadows. So the way to hit the escape button is no way out. The magic is to discover that there's a way in. And I promise you, 100%, I'm 100%, absolute experience of duality is.
Hello, Andrew. Thank you so much for being here with us for Chung Huong Institute podcast. Andrew, your work really opens the door for new perspectives of meditation. I have heard it from countless people, and people say, "Oh, Andrew is my biggest hero or my biggest idol." So I would love if maybe we can begin with you just sharing a little about the work you do and who you are and really what got you on this path.
Oh, you're so kind. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. It seems I have a couple people fooled, so we'll keep it cool. Yeah, I've been on the meditative, I guess I would say, psycho-spiritual journey, inward bound, trying to understand the nature of mind and reality, who I am, what is real. And because of that, I've um, engaged in pretty extensive meditation, exploring a host of different ways of working with mind in particular, and then by extension in reality. So I guess if I looked 50,000 foot view at what I do when I look over my books and whatnot, it's basically empowering the extraordinary capacity, transformative capacity of meditation in all its many multifaceted voices. There's people think of meditation as one thing, but it's like the word sport. It's a multivalent term. There are dozens and dozens, hundreds of sports. And as you know, similarly, there are many, many, many different types of meditations. And so I try to just open the lens of people so they can see that there's so many ways to work with their mind and heart using these meditative technologies.
I love this one here. Got it ready.
Oh, reverse meditation.
Meditation.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Great. Yeah, I like that one too.
Andrea, I'm curious. I mean, you reframed shamatha and vipassana in this way that I think can be really accessible for people who kind of push it away. And I wonder if maybe you can tell our listeners maybe a little bit about what is reverse meditation and if they want to meditate, why is this important for them to know?
Yeah, okay, sure. So I did not make up this term. This term comes from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And for people who may know a little bit about that tradition, in particular, what's called the Mahamudra tradition, just to situate it, I learned it in my 3-year retreat 25 years ago or so. And I found it a really unusual, almost bizarre, weird, quirky practice that also kind of grabbed me with this potential. And so fundamentally, it's reversed for a number of reasons. It's called reverse because it reverses our normal strategies of what we think meditation and the spiritual path might be, which for many people, it's about feeling good. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But it's much more than feeling good. It's more about getting real. And getting real includes some of the harsh challenges of physical and emotional pain in one's life. And so it reverses one's normal feel-good strategies that let's just get out of something that's uncomfortable, run off to something that seems to be more comfortable. And actually, in that very avoidance strategy, we ironically transform simple pain into complex suffering. So another reason it's called reverse is, as you might suspect, your relationship to challenging situations once you're armed with a skill set of the reverse meditations is, well, guess what? Completely reversed. So you're given the opportunity to work, and I've unpacked this in 4 steps to what are the 4 stages of going directly into that which we would normally flee. And so those are the principal reasons. It's just a magnificent way to expand our horizon, again, of what meditation can actually do. And in a certain way, it accelerates one's meditative spiritual path because the practices accommodate everything. With these practices, distraction becomes your meditation, old age, sickness, and even death becomes your meditation. Those things that one might even consider anti-spiritual, non-meditative, kind of in the alchemical tradition or the truest definition of the tantric traditions, that it just accelerates it. So I playfully say by putting your meditation into reverse, you'll find yourself going forward. And so for me, I've used it for decades with really challenging emotional situations, um, challenging physical situations, and it seems very ripe, fortuitous in this day and age because have you noticed there's a heap of hurt in the world? And instead of running off trying to feel good and using your meditative cocaine, your metaphysical Valium, as your meditation as a way to hit the escape button, like my teacher once said, there is no way out. The magic is to discover that there's a way in. And so this also ties into non-duality. It's fundamentally a way to work with non-duality in a very immediate, embodied, affective, emotional way. So, yeah, much to say. That's why I wrote the whole book.
I love how you say no way out. One of the first pieces of advice my master gave me was she said that the mind is always going to find an excuse. You have to give it no way out.
Yeah, I mean, Pema Chodron, right? She made her career out of this. Her first book is The Wisdom of No Escape. In a certain way, this is like, mind languaging. People who may be familiar with John Kabat-Zinn's work on mindfulness-based stress reduction in his classic book, Full Catastrophe Living from 40 years ago or so. In a certain way, this is like MBSR on steroids. So it picks up the mantle of what John has done so beautifully and just, I think, expands it and makes it a little bit more applicable and practical. So yeah.
Andrew, you mentioned non-duality. So when we look at non-dual philosophy, a lot of times that gets conflated in our, modern era, modern world. So can you talk about how does that work in our modern, our practice, our modern world, our modern society, not confuse reality with, you know.
Right. Yeah, this is a big one, right? So it's popular these days. It's been around, of course, for thousands of years, and especially in the Advaita, non-dual tradition of Hinduism. You look at the deeper ends of Buddhism. We talked about Mahamudra. There are other schools in Buddhism that talk about it. And yeah, so it's getting a lot of traction, a lot of press, and it's fantastic. But there are some near enemies to the tradition we can talk about. I think there's some blind spot. Whenever you find light, you will find shadows, and the brighter the light, the sharper the shadows. So there are some serious concerns, in my estimation, with non-duality if it's not related properly as a practice and as an approach to reality. But I suppose at the outset, what I could say that's completely resonant with the reverse meditations is we tend to think of non-duality as being, for many people, synonymous with awakening, synonymous with enlightenment. And if you're going to attain enlightenment, you're going to attain some degree of non-duality. And I think that's provisionally true. I think it's maybe halfway there. But how this ties in, I think, in a very immediate, practical way today, and the reverse meditations, is that if we simply establish a complete, full, unapproximated relationship to whatever we're experiencing right here and right now, that's it. We're actually in the non-dual space. In fact, there's nothing but the non-dual space. There's nothing but nirvana. There's nothing but the clear light mind. There's nothing but enlightenment. That's it. Hard stop. Right here, right now. You are sitting in the middle of the awakened space right here, right now. Um, and if that is in fact the case, then it becomes extraordinarily interesting. Well, what blinds me to this? What's the source of obfuscation? Why do I not see it? And this becomes really, really fantastically interesting because many of us keep, well, it can't be that easy, it can't be that obvious. What we're looking for is hiding in plain sight. The three maxims underneath that is so obvious you don't see it, so simple you don't believe it, so easy you don't trust it. And so you keep looking for something better, something better. Now, on a relative level, that's completely valid from the position of what are called the causal vehicles. You strive to achieve and to acquire, you become more proficient, just like you would with any other discipline. But at a certain point, that vector bottoms out. And in fact, I wrote this little piece a year or so ago, the two biggest problems with the spiritual path. Number one, use of the word spiritual.
Mhm.
Number two, use of the word path. Outside of that is perfect. Because number one, spiritual, not merely in contrast to material, but in opposition to it. And therefore, you get this whole spiritual bypass thing that my friend John Wellwood wrote so famously about, that you have to get away from the material and run to the spiritual. Well, no, reverse that strategy. Again, reverse meditation. Go directly into the material 100%. You'll find the spirituals there. Secondly, a path to where? Where can you go where you are not? Where can you go that it is not? And so in this case, path pulls you away. So at the highest levels, you have to kick even the ladder out. At the highest levels, spiritual path itself is not only contraindicated, it backfires on you. And so what's the maxim? You cannot find it by seeking, but only seekers will find it. It's fantastic. So you get in this really interesting relationship to the experience. But the fundamental teaching here is that if we really understand this deep in our hearts, and it's so contrary to spiritual path, it's got to go somewhere. It's got to be, can't be this simple. It can't be this easy. I've got to go to heaven. I've got to go any place other than this. But there, like again, my teacher, there's no such thing as an underdeveloped moment. Every moment is perfectly pure as it is right now. And that includes your hardship, your pain. If you relate to it all perfectly purely, it transforms into bliss. So the last thing, and then I'll stop for a second because there's so much more to say. But perhaps the most powerful thing is the utter unequivocal immediacy of it. And I playfully say, because I used to work in the health arts with this view, stop rescheduling your appointment with reality. Stop deferring it. Open the aperture of your awareness, your heart, mind, and body, and realize you're in the pure land. You're in heaven. What do they say in the Christian Gnostic Gospels? The kingdom of heaven is spread out across the earth, but men and women do not see it. So the way this applies, well, that sounds good. It's nice philosophy. It's nice spiritual rhetoric. Well, how do I perhaps engage in it? Well, the reverse your strategies. And I promise you, 100%, 100%, the absolute experience of duality is the experience of non-duality. Let me say that again. The absolute experience of duality is the experience of non-duality. Whoa, whoa, is that true? Find out, see for yourself. And it's like here, it's like right here, right now. So this is a magnificent, what I like to call peaceful transfer of power, where it's immediate. It's right here. Just remove the cataracts of confusion, whatever metaphor you want to use, dilate your consciousness. My favorite definition of meditation these days is habituation to openness. And if we simply open to, I mean, like sometimes I think of the Buddha. Yes, he was the awakened one, but I think he was also the opened one. If you simply open, if you simply cease contracting, it's right here. So you never attain enlightenment. The implications here are so profound. You never attain enlightenment. You simply cease to be deluded. You never really open. You simply cease contracting. And so this is why so many terms for awakening, uh, enlightenment, non-duality, are in terms of negation, right? The soul grows by subtraction, not addition, by Meister Eckhart. And so non-duality, it's a term of negation. Nirvana, extinction, it's a term of negation. Nirodha, cessation, it's a term of negation. Nirguna, nisprapancha, so many of these terms that depict the awakened state, these are not add-ons. These are take it off, strip it off, negate, cease. Um, See how excited I get with this. The root of the word dharma, I love word origins and etymology, Dharma. This is a huge term, in Eastern Hindu Buddhist approaches. Comes from a Sanskrit root dhr, which means hold, as in two senses. Hold as in stop, cease. And this means stop breaking away, stop distracting. That's the bad boy. Every time you distract, you split reality into two. Hold as in contain, mandala principle. And so if we understand this, we realize that we're always practicing duality. Duality is a state of mind. It's not a state in reality. Samsara is a state of mind. It's not a state in reality. And so if we understand the phenomenology, the processes here, we actually realize, well, geez, this is maybe why I'm so good at duality. Maybe this is why I'm so good. I mean, specimen A, that's me. I'm really good at this. I have accomplished samsara. I have accomplished duality. I don't even have to think about it. I'm living on automatic ignorance. I'm a natural. But it didn't come natural. It came through endless repetition, endless practice of duality, of samsara. Every single time I distract, I pull apart from a non-dual space. Every time I contract, every time I grasp, every time I do almost anything, really, that's what's so amazing. That's our default. I mean, the neurologists talk about default mode network, the neurological correlates to the ego structure. That's our default mode, is to distract, contract, because that's what keeps ego alive. So again, this is a huge topic, but maybe some highlights here. But the most important, I'm going to say it the third time, see if it's true for yourself. The absolute experience of duality, right here, right now, experience it fully. That is the experience of non-duality. So what is it? Retreat, retract, return. If distraction is the problem, retreating, retracting, returning. The essence of spiritual practice is remembrance. Vajra Regent, Plato was onto this with his teachings of anamnesis, the recollection. We just forgot. We're simply and we practice for this forgetfulness with every distraction. We forgot. We are the Buddha. This is a Pure Land. We are in the non-dual state right here and right now. And I playfully say, people say this and they nod their heads, and sometimes they say yes, yes, that's true, and then they say but, and I playfully call it the big but, because if they say the big but, yes, that's true, but well, then we have something for you. It's called the path, but a path to where? Nowhere. Or if you like the word nowhere, break it up means now here. It's just open, open. The only thing we could turn off this podcast after this comment, we'd be done. Every secret to awakening will be in front of you. The only thing you have to do to wake up, the only thing you have to do to have a really good death, stop doing. Open, relax. That's it.
Andrew, do you have a microphone there? We can just drop the mic now.
Yeah, that's it. It's done. Got to go see why. Right? I'm not kidding. I was like, this he's being snarky, he's being smart alecky. No, I'm not. But it's so steep. It's just like, no, it can't be that obvious. It can't be that true. So I like these images, right? So we're looking for Hollywood, right? Everybody wants a big Hollywood type experience. And I playfully say, we're looking for Hollywood when the experience is more like Oklahoma. It's really ordinary. I mean, the Tibetan is called their ordinary mind. And so we keep driving past it. We keep driving past ordinary experience, thinking it can't be right. This can't be it. It's got to be something better than this. And it's not. I mean, it's just right here, right now. And everybody who has had this experience, like T.S. Eliot said, you return to where you started at the end of the journey and see it as if for the first time. So this teaching is replete in many world wisdom traditions. Many poets, William Blake, many others have taught it, and so it's worth reinstating because it's just so almost unbelievable. But it's true. You know what? It's true. Something
And
like that.
tell us what happened to you in your life. I mean, how has your life transformed after not just hearing the teachings, but reflecting and practicing on such teachings? Can you give us a little before and after perspective? So,
Well, yeah, I can try. Sure. Yeah, I mean, you're intimating, I think, an important point. This classic. I'm, very interested in learning, transformation, pedagogy. And so the following statement you intimated it is a classic Indic pedagogical technique from both Hindu and Buddhist schools that has really been such a charter of my own life. It's worth saying just a little bit. Very easy. They're called the three wisdom tools, or the term in Sanskrit, the three prajnas, Prajnas. And first one is hearing. That's what we're doing here. Me you flapping your lips, me flapping my lips, or me reading these books. That's ingesting information. But in this age, it's information age, this can be a bit of a problem because we confuse information for experience and we get all kinds of experiential eating disorders because we're eating the menu instead of the meal. And then we wonder why something is missing. Well, because we're not consuming what's really the only thing there is experience. So then you ingest it, and then you start to chew on it. You start to reflect on it. The blazing, beautiful art of contemplation, which I think is somewhat lost. Memorizing and reflecting and mulling and like all the stuff I'm saying. Don't take my word for it. Be a good scientist. Be like any deep empirical scientist. Test it. Is it true? Does it work for you? Dalai Lama says, if you find what I say of benefit, take it to heart. If you don't, throw it out the window. So the second thing is you test it. Is it true? Does it resonate? Does it explain my experience? That's contemplation. That's digest. And you're starting to work down because you know the hearing part, ingesting part, that's still conceptual, still dualistic, it's still heady. And that's philosophy in its pejorative sense. So you work your way down like a filtration purification system, waking down into the wisdom of the body, because again, the body knows all this. The body, this is where you're dropping. Again, reverse meditation. It's not about going up and out. If you think you need to go to some super high spiritual place, like I playfully say, where height and light, it's all about height and light, isn't it? Well, if you just go up height and light, you just get high altitude sickness and metaphysical sunburn. It's just like that ain't gonna work. That's the pejorative path of spirit. You want to balance it with path of soul, inward, body. With every step you take up and out, take another step down and in. And in the non-dual traditions, right, higher is replaced with inner. So the highest practice are the innermost practices, the ones that take you to the center of your central self. And so you work your way down, you start here, reflect, ingest, digest, right? And then third step, meditation, right? Metabolize, ingest, digest, metabolize. So the teachings almost quite literally become you. They literally, etymologically, they're incorporated, turned into a body. And you can feel this when you're around someone like His Holiness Dalai Lama, or any other great master, male or female. Dalai Lama's Tibetan name is Kundin, which is presence. He's just glowing. He doesn't have to say a thing. He just transmits because he's living the teachings. So hearing, contemplating, meditating, and just metabolize. Each step down is more embodied, less conceptual, more embodied, and also increasingly non-dual. And so it's in meditation. In fact, when you're talking about the absolute highest teachings, you literally, the conceptual mind can't go there. Ego cannot attend its own funeral. The conceptual mind literally cannot grok these deepest dimensions. It's really the wisdom of the body that has to create the aha moment, not create it, allow it. And so we work down, filter, purify, come down, we get it, we stabilize. Ah, there it is. Oh my gosh, it's true. I tested it, I tried it, I feel it, it's true. And then, the trick is you don't just hang out in this blissful inner space. That's another spiritual bypass. Well, then you work your way back up through speech, which is associated with contemplation, through mind associated with concept. But now you have to do so with a level of purity, not losing that fundamental non-duality. In other words, what I mean, if it's not done properly, you have a big spiritual experience, which many people do. If we weren't recording this, so I wouldn't get sued, I could name 30 spiritual masters in the West who have not, in my estimation, done this inner and outer journey very effectively. And so you come up and out. If you don't do it properly, it's a bidirectional process. You stain the experience. So you can impurify. If going down purifies concept, coming back up, if it's not done with some lucidity or awareness, you can stain it and purify it. And that's where so many problems happen in the West. Some of the scandals or endless abuse, which will never stop, all that stuff arises from there. So I think this is helpful so people understand the kind of approach that's necessary here, at least in my understanding. Because if it's all just headspace, you're going to get lost in headspace. You're going to get buried under books like this, and you're going to die, whatever scholar or intellect. I'm not dissing it, right? It has a tremendous place in the West. But the great skill set from the Eastern, so-called Eastern traditions is this integration part, bringing it in, living it, breathing it, so that then your whole life, that's the whole point, I mean, all fundamentally self-liberate, every single antidote, life becomes your practice. The embodiment of wisdom is expressed compassion. That becomes not only your practice, but then your life. And this pedagogical, masterful approach from Hindu and Buddhist schools to me is what makes this tradition just so spectacular.
Yes. I thank you for not mentioning the 30 plus names, first of all, Andrew.
Who am I, first of all? I mean, they could all be completely awake and I'm just projecting onto them. But I think for some people, you may know, oh, where do these scandals come from? Where does this ridiculous damage come from? And I think it's partly because of inability to really do this type of deep inner work, at least according to me, according to my book of reality.
Yeah, and we see this pattern in the West. Everyone's looking for a teacher. Everyone's looking for a spiritual master, guru, whatever we want to call it, right?
Yeah.
So, can you share a little bit for people who may be seeking, how do they not fall into the trap? I mean,
Yeah,
this,
that's a good one. Yeah, thank you for being so practical. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm a big work of not big work, big fan of integral theory, which is basically I'll find truth wherever I can get it. No one has a patent on reality. I mean, I'm a card-carrying Tibetan Buddhist for I playfully say mostly for tax purposes, but I will find truth like the Buddha allegedly said, wherever you find the truth, you will find my Dharma. And so east, west, north, south, I don't care where it comes from. Buddhism, philosophy, and neuroscience, physics, I'm there. And I'm in this regard, I'm a deep, deep student of Western psychology, psychological traditions, especially depth psychology. And so this is where I'm going with this, the work of Carl Jung. He wrote so exquisitely about shadow work. And there are shadows are those repressed elements that we basically plaster onto the world and project in the world. And he said a staggering quotation when he said, projection turns the world into a replica of one's unknown face. It's a stunning, stunning statement. That if you want to discover your unconscious mind, it's writ large as the phenomenal world. I mean, we impute, project this face. And so in deep, deep meditation, you come face to face with all these projections. And a lot of the work is not about just waking up spirituality, growing up psychology, but cleaning up, which is shadow work. And so where I'm going with this is not all shadows are so-called dark shadows. They're what I call golden shadows. And this is when we put, it was so unwittingly, again, this is the brilliance of Carl Jung's work in any deep depth psychology, is we put God way up on high. Again, I'm not being critical. We put teachers way up high on a pedestal. Well, I playfully say, well, how did they get up there? Right? We put them up there. We projected them up there, right? So we project. This is a peaceful transfer of power, and not so peaceful sometimes, and not so positive, where fundamentally we project out, not just our garbage. We project out our beauty, our power, divinity, and we plaster it on to people. Or if you've ever been in love and you've been married, I mean, half the time, not half the time, I'd say 98% of the time, when you fall in love with someone, you're falling in love with your shadows. Now, these are the negative ones. Well, not always, both. And so eventually, as you know, if you're in a relationship long enough, right? One day you wake up, look over, and like, well, who is this person? Where'd they come from? Right? You fall out of love and into reality because the shadows are imputations. They're not inherent. They're not real to the person. So they wear out. And so here what we do, and this is what happens all the time. We project onto, and so this is where you have to give spiritual teachers a break. And this is why if somebody calls me a spiritual teacher, I just get totally creeped out. I'm not a spiritual teacher, maybe a spiritual friend. I'm mostly just a geek, that likes to meditate. So anyway, back to the story. So here's the deity on high, here's the teacher on high, here's whatever God on high. How the heck did they get up there? Well, we projected them up there. Those are our golden shadows. And then eventually, because we did lift them up there with our shadows, well, guess what's going to happen? Sooner or later, the shadows are going to wear off and they're going to come back to Earth. And the real bummer is sometimes they buy into the projections that you throw onto them. They start to take the adulation and the praise seriously, and they go, "Geez, well, maybe I'm special." Well, welcome to a cult. Welcome to a codependent, enabling, not so healthy relationship. Instead of teacher and student kind of bidirectionally bootstrapping, lifting each other up, they take each other down. And again, turn off the recording, 30 communities, big, big splash, and then disaster crashes. Well, because it's not true, it's not real. The shadows wear out. And if you understand this, then you say, okay, well, maybe it would be beneficial to learn a little bit about psychology. Maybe it will be beneficial to learn about the psycho dimension of the psycho-spiritual path and realize that it's all an incredible spectrum. Because otherwise, I promise you, you're just gonna get caught in your own projections. You're gonna get caught in a snare of enabling and codependency. And you're going to radically complicate your life. And so if you understand some of these things and you ask the tough questions. Like for instance, I just give you a couple criteria. For a teacher, if they draw the circle around and say, you can't study with anybody else, run for the hills. If you can't ask the tough questions, they run for the hills. If you can't feel, look into the so-called senior teachers, look at these people very closely. And don't be shy to really, really ask questions. Really be tough. Don't give your power away. An authentic teacher will welcome the challenges. They'll welcome the questions. And so, I mean, it's a big, big, complex issue, but I think it's a very, very important one. And so, again, understanding the psycho-spiritual aspect of it, that there are vectors we exist on two different axes of identity, psychological and spiritual, and they're always fluid. Recognizing how we're always projecting, whether we know it or not. I mean, here's a really quick maxim, and then I'll pause just to show you how ubiquitous the power and the role of projection is. If you're a situation or person affects you more than they inform you, you're probably dealing with a projection. If you react more than you respond, you're probably dealing with a projection. Oh my God, I wish you hadn't told me that. What does it say? That I am projecting all the time. Well, because you are. Because ego projects as if its life depends on it, because it does. And so, therefore, it's incredibly humbling, but you can't solve a problem you don't even know you have. And so, to have this revealed and put into your face like this is where the beginning of real deep shadow work takes place. And this is where real growth takes place. But again, what do you do in a reverse meditation? You go into these. That's got to be, they're perfect, they're beautiful. Now, inherently, yes, but in nature, everybody is a deity. Yes, I'm not dissing that. But don't put all your eggs, going back to the non-dual thing. Don't put all your eggs in the non-dual basket, because that basket will break. You have to bring in some of these other traditions, in my estimation, because everybody has their blind spots. Why? The West has a blind spot of reductionism and materialism, colossal. I actually think the East has not actually, I'm quite certain of it. They have their own massive collection of blind spots, and one is the conflation of everything down to karma. Everything is karmic. It's all karma. I don't think so. Now, here's where the conflation comes. Everything arises because of causes and conditions, for sure. Karma arises because of karma, causes and conditions, and therefore everything's karmic. That's a category error. That's a conflation. No, that's not true. The Buddha himself taught what are called the five niyamas, the orders of reality. Uttu niyama, bija niyama, chitta niyama, karma niyama, dharma niyama. These are the five kind of ordering principles of reality, of which karma niyama is just one, causation based on behavior. And so that's another, I point that out because these blind spots are everywhere. And this is where they get really, really sticky and stinky, because by definition, you can't introspect these. They're called structures of consciousness. You don't look at them, you look through them. And therefore, they're the fundamental blind spots. And this is a so-called blind spot, in my opinion, of the East. The East does not have the data acquisition systems to assess these structures of consciousness. They just don't. This is why you won't find these articulations of human development. I mean, yes, there are intimations in the five skandhas and the eight consciousnesses. And if you look closely in the Lankavatara and others, there are some intimations. But they don't have structuralism. They don't have developmentalism, because they don't work with the data acquisition systems that allow people to see these structures. And so, without these, boy, blind spot upon blind spot, structure, plastered upon structure. Welcome to the meta crisis. Welcome to super samsara. So this maybe you've discovered this human condition is magnificent, is beautiful, is breathtaking, but it's also really messy. It's really complicated. And yes, you can put all your, back to the non-dual thing. I'll put all my things in the emptiness basket, theoretically, for sure. Emptiness can handle everything, for sure. But in my experience, get back to me on this in 10, 20 years. Let me know how that works. This is another form of absolutism. I've heard people say, Buddhism doesn't need therapy. Double Chandra meant. Well, I think maybe whoever says that, you both need therapy. But this is just me. This is just the way I roll. I could be completely wrong, but I've been around a little bit. I've seen a lot of people really get hurt. I've seen a lot of people really get stuck. You have a problem. Oh, you got to meditate harder. Maybe. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And that doesn't mean you have to be a perfectionist, but it means you need to know, what are you doing here? What's really going on? So that's, you mentioned half an hour ago. Yeah, this is kind of where the way I roll, being a little bit like Socrates. This is what got Socrates killed. Question, question authority, like the bumper sticker. Be a gadfly. Get in there and ask the tough questions. Socrates says, the only difference between you and me is I know that I don't know. And that's again is why these blind spots and structures of consciousness are so nasty. They're so sticky. Like Mark Twain said, it's not what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you do know that just ain't so. The things that you take as axiomatic, as givens, space, time, causality, self, that's just the way it is. No, these are all constructs. I mean, this is another aspect of projection. These are all made up. They're constructs. So anyway, I'm straying all over the place because the question is so rich, but that's what comes to
Thank
mind.
you, Andrew. When you speak, I remember, when I met my master and I searched for a teacher for almost 20 years. And I thought I will not ordain until I find that master, the right teacher, not just settle for anything. And
Wonderful. Good.
someone told me, you have to watch the teacher you're considering for 2 years. So at the time, I took it so literally. I found out where she's walking. She knows all this. It's not stalking for the listeners. I found out where she was walking, where she's going to be at certain times. And I watched her literally for 2 years. Then I realized that's not the meaning of that teaching.
Yeah, well, in the Tibetan tradition, they actually say 12 years.
Yeah.
12 years. They say the student should watch the teacher and the teacher should watch the student for 12 years. Literal number, metaphorical number, I don't know. But the idea is what you just said. Yeah, just watch, what do they say? I mean, what do they do? How do they act? It's like they say in the five remembrances, my actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequence of my actions. My actions are the ground on which I stand. So it's not what the flapping of the lips and the wind that comes out of here. You want to know the level of realization of a person is how they live and breathe and walk, and are they in the service of others? Is every breath they take for out of compassion? Is everything they do for the benefit of others? So this is the other thing about a way to test. Do they have a 501(c)(3), so to speak? I mean, how active are they in the world helping people? Or is it just like metaphysical God talk? So that's another criteria because if the wisdom isn't immediately expressed as compassion, it's not wisdom. And this is when compassion and wisdom are two sides of the same coin. So yes, sometimes you can get blinded by, people have the right words, they get really smart and they say all these smart, sparkly things. Scientists and philosophers are really good at that. And again, I love these people. I roll with them all the time. But you want to find the real metric of a human being who might be open and awake is how much do they love? How fearless are they in their love? I often riff these days, like when I'm teaching, if what we're doing in the community, in a program, is not of benefit to this world and to others, it's irrelevant. It's just feel-good strategy. Maybe a little bit extreme, but I don't think so because everybody otherwise just wants to feel good when again it's about getting real and loving. How fearless can you be with your love and your compassion? That's when you know.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, Andrew, a lot of the time people make this mistake. They decide that they're going to find the famous teacher and that's the quote unquote right teacher. Now, this is something I oftentimes tell people that's going to be your biggest trap.
Yeah, that's the first step, and then you're going the first step in the wrong direction. Totally, I totally agree.
Yeah. And how would you say for people who don't want to face themselves, who don't want to face the reality, who really want guidance, but they don't want the tough love, right? Because so oftentimes we're just like, oh, feed the ego. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, who am I to say, right? We again, we all exist along at least several spectrums of being and identity, and I've been doing this for so long, like, as you have, that I tend to kind of, lean, so to speak, towards, I guess, the higher, deeper ends. But I'm also really sensitive to where people are and what they're doing, because I remember when I started, many, many years at this point, decades ago. You know what got me in to the meditative path?
What is it?
Food. Kung
Huh?
Fu, David Carradine, right? I was total BS, right? I mean, you know what it was, the Shaolin priest that was like really meditative and contemplative, and then they, kick some serious, I use three-letter words, kick some serious ass. And at the time, that was my dharma. It was
Mhm.
like, oh my God, I want to be like David Carradine. And so the reason I say this is different strokes for different folks. Everybody has their frequency, everybody has their bandwidth, everybody has their sweet spot. Some people may want to grow in this particular direction. Beautiful, wonderful, go for it. Other people want to go in this direction. Great. And so I'm in absolutely no position to assess, to evaluate. I mean, that's just not who I am. But maybe what I can do is just share a lifetime of experience and a lifetime of mistakes. You know, I have to share my teacher, Kemper Miche said this beautifully along these lines. So when people can give themselves a little break, relax this whole absolutism perfection thing. He said, erring and erring, we walk the unerring path. Mistake after mistake, we walk the mistaken path. I mean, this thing is we're humans, we're littered, we're complex, we're gonna make thousands of mistakes. But if we allow these mistakes to teach us, if we allow there's no such failure, there's no such thing as a failure. If you reframe and relate to the failure properly, they show you where you're stuck. And so along these lines, yeah, openness, humility, um, just being aware that people are at vastly different stages in life and vastly different um, kind of frequency domains of waking up. Some people, of course, are not interested in at all. They wouldn't be listening to a podcast like this, period. They would just be drinking a beer and watching a football game. Hey, I like a beer, I like football, but if that's all you do, you know,
Mhm.
might want to take a look at that. So I tend to be a little, I'm slightly cautious about, because it can very easily be cast as judgment or dismissal, and that's not the way I roll. We're all really different. We all do what we feel we need to do to be happy. And so perhaps the inquiry, and this is where again, be empirical, be a scientist, kick the tires, um, ask the right questions. Like, what am I really doing here? I mean, literally, if when I'm looking for material fame, money, power, just to put it really, really practically, what am I really after? What am I really looking for? Well, you're looking after and wanting to acquire certain particular qualities of mind. That's fundamentally what you're after. It's another conflation. Oh, and this is good because if you pay attention to the following, it will save you tens of thousands of dollars, which you can then give to the poor. You think you're happy. Not really. See if this is true. Don't take my word for it. And then I'll pause. We think we're happy when we get what we want, right? Money, fame, power, you name it, fill in the blank. Doesn't matter. We think we're happy when we get what we want, and hence we never stop wanting. This is killing the planet. Average American consumes 200 times the world's average of natural resources. This wrong view is destroying this earth. So take a close look. Maybe you can save the earth. Are you really happy when you get what you want? Or are you really happy at the moment you stop wanting? There's that issue of cessation again, negation. You already have everything you could possibly want. And write this down, put it on a sticky note, tattoo it, put it on your forehead, put it on your fridge, put it on a computer. We confuse the satisfaction of desire with its temporary transcendence. We think we're happy when we get what we want, hence we never stop wanting. To take a close look, we're really happy when we stop wanting. We open. There's that narrative again. Grasping and grasping is contracting, closing, and attaching. Meditation, habituation to openness. Buddha, the open one. Look below, and you'll see this. This is tied in because this is real happiness, right? Do it in an experiment. Pick into your mind. You can do it right now. 3 moments. Let's pause, close our eyes. 3 moments when you had an experience in your life that you would append with the label spiritual. Maybe walking in nature, seeing beautiful scenery, maybe being with a loved one, maybe a deep meditative experience. It doesn't matter. Three of the deepest, richest, spiritual, most mystical experiences. Bring them to mind. It's easy. Now, look. Is there a common denominator behind all three of those experiences? Look. And again, don't take my word for it. See if it's true. When I look, what I find underneath any of these experiences, quality of openness, release. And then I realize, well, if that's true. Hey, what? Well, guess what? Maybe I can practice unconditional happiness where I'm no longer a slave to external circumstance. I can practice unconditional happiness by practicing how to open. Meditation is habituation to openness. If I become open, if I not become, because I'm already open, if I cease contracting, cease distracting, and just relax, there's that term again. Open, relax. I have to say it again, then we can turn it off. We'll give it another try. Second time, we'll try it, then we'll kill it. Open, relax. That's it. Okay, well, if you can do that, hello, everything becomes a spiritual experience. Your whole life becomes a spiritual experience. And you realize, oh my gosh, it's true. I am in a pure land. This is heaven, right? Oh, all I have to do is open and dilate my eyes. I've always been here. Dilate my heart, dilate my body. If this is true, you're going to save yourself a ton of time and anguish. This is true renunciation right here. I don't need this. In fact, it's a distraction. Like Nietzsche said, we then become possessed by that which we feel we possess. I don't need any of this stuff because I have everything I could possibly want. I have a mind, I have a body, and I have a heart. And if you just rest into that, whoa, radical simplicity, radical minimalism, you'll die like allegedly Mahatma Gandhi, who could put all his worldly possessions in a shoebox because he realized he didn't need anything. He already had everything because he had a mind and a heart. And so this is, I mean, talk about practical. Wow, this is so simplifying. But, if this ever came out, the government would shut this down, every industry, they blacklist this presentation because this bankrupts the egoic economy, which is based on deficient emptiness, insufficiency. I need this product. I need this mate. I need fill in the blank. It's got to be something better than this. And right there, in the very gesture of trying to improve, you stain. Now, this doesn't mean provisionally, yes, we want to get better, the relative path, right? We need that. I'm not dismissing that. Growth and that kind of thing, absolutely, it has a place. But if these more kind of, I guess you say, foundational, deeper, non-dualistic or absolutistic approaches, these are these truths, the truths are definitely worth exploring, testing for yourself, and to see if it's true. Perhaps if it is, this could be tectonic shifting in your life. It could really change things dramatically. So just check it out. Don't take my word for it. Check it out.
I love that. Andrew, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for the one
Oh, go for it. Love it.
because the one in the comments, someone's going to say,
Okay.
well, I'm relaxing, and then they become lazy. Right. So now can you distinguish relaxation and laziness?
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is good. So yeah, this is funny. This is great. So when I first started going to my meditation center, decades ago, when I was like snarky, playful, people would say, "Well, geez, oh, what do you meditation center? What do you guys do at your meditation center?" And I'd sometimes say, "Well, we do nothing, but we do it really well." And so that's the key. It's not just doing nothing. That's the near enemy, right? Doing nothing is, siesta, mañana. I mean, I'm not saying it has its place, right? But that's not going to wake you up. That'll put you to sleep. That's just going to keep you in your comfort plan. So this is where with every noble quality, there is an ignoble shadow side. And so being aware of these, like in fact, I'm saying open, be spacious. Well, if you're too spacey, I'm sorry, if you become too spacious, you become too spacey. If you're too open, like I playfully say, oh, I'm just going to say yes, I'm just going to accept everything. Well, I playfully say, well, if your mind is too open, your brains will fall out, right? So there's near enemies everywhere. So yes, the art of non-doing, the art of relaxing, but this is the art of meditation, is learning how to relax and do nothing well. And what does that really mean? Well, it doesn't mean siesta, because then you'll know this because you will fall asleep. literally. So we're talking about a relaxation and openness that will wake you up. And this is where a teacher is really helpful. I mean, almost indispensable. I would say indispensable, honestly, because Feynman said we're, the physicist, don't kid yourself, but we are the easiest ones to kid. We kid ourselves all the time. So this is where, as you know, you take refuge in the Buddha, someone or a teacher who can keep you in line, act as a very powerful mirror. You take refuge in the teachings, the Dharma, so that you have some references where you can check that I'm not making this stuff up. And then you take refuge, people always have the hardest time with this one, with the Sangha, with the community, being willing to be naked in a hall of mirrors, where again, if you're willing to have this contract, man, you realize I am just, look at, I'm, this community sucks, and everybody in this community sucks. No, again, you're projecting. No, they don't. They're just people, right? So this is where the nuance, the granularity, the refinement and understanding this. It's not just doing nothing, it's doing nothing well. It's not just relaxing, it's relaxing properly. It's not just opening, it's opening properly. Because otherwise, yeah, just as you're saying, it's so easy. In fact, it's almost inevitable. Like John Welwood's beautiful teachings on spiritual bypass. Or Trungpa Rinpoche decades before, because John got this from Trungpa Rinpoche's teaching on spiritual materialism. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. These spiritual so-called pathologies, they are epidemic. It is so easy for ego to come in and co-opt, and I mean, I'm the exception. I don't have to play by the rules. I don't have to do the precepts. These regulations don't apply to me. I'm unique. Eh, so this is where community, teacher, tradition, closest thing you'll get to a guarantee is lineage and tradition. And so that to me is critically important because otherwise you will kid yourself and you're just going to get stuck. So everybody does. Again, erring and erring, we walk the inerring path. We have teachers to bump us, to correct us. We have the world, the phenomenal world, symbolic guru. The world becomes your teacher. You just have to open, and you can be somewhat aware of this and sometimes self-correct, but usually need some outside help. Can't get enlightened without others. This is one rendering of that. You know, it's
Thank you.
really, really hard to do this by yourself.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. Andrew, we have a ritual here. Surprise. And
Okay, cool. I love rituals. Ritual mythology. I'm all over it. Love it.
our ritual is where the previous podcast guest asks a question for the next one. So you have a question from Dr. Judson Brewer. First of all,
Oh,
Jed wants to pass along his best to you. He's
he's
very
the
happy.
best. I love Judd. Oh my God. So no, I'm gonna make sure I understand. He was your last guest. Is that what you just said?
Yes. So you'll see
Oh,
the interview on our show. I'll send you the link as well directly.
I love Dr. Brewer. He's such a cool guy. Oh, wonderful. It makes me happy. He's terrific.
Yes. So Jed asks you, he said, what is an alternative way to define the Buddha besides the awakened one that has pragmatic utility for someone looking to decrease suffering?
Yeah. Well, we talked just a wee bit about that, right? One would be the opened one, open to your suffering, open to your contractions, open to unwanted experiences, open to samsara. Embrace it. Don't indulge it. There's the inner enemy. Open to it, love it, embrace it fully. You see it transforms, reveals itself as nirvana. So I would probably come back and say the opened one because again, this is something we can feel. This is something we can connect with. And um, if you want to know what opening really feels like, I mean, almost every quality of opening feels really good. Well, fundamentally, it is root. The primordial openness is love. You cannot be contracted and in love. And so, when I mentioned earlier, three situations where you would append the label spiritual, mystical, well, unconditional love. By the way, tying it back in, how do you know when you're of contact with the non-dual spaces? Well, beauty in relation to objects, love in relation to beings. So you want to gain an intimation of your glimpse of the non-dual state when your mind is stopped with tremendous beauty. Music heard, T.S. Eliot, music heard so deeply, it is not heard at all. You become the music while the music lasts. That's non-dual. Love your pet, your child, your whatever. Notice that first instance of love, not lust, not conditional referential, I love you. That's dualistic. Even saying I love you is dualistic. Get rid of the I, which gets rid of the you. Duality breaks away. What's left in the middle? Love. And what's the quality that allows you to do that? Open.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. And one more minute question. One
Oh, okay. We actually.
surprise. One really, really quickly. This is from one of my meditation students, actually. He's
Cool.
he's a very big fanboy of yours. He's
Oh, he
very
doesn't know me well.
excited.
He
And
doesn't know me well enough. Fire
he
away.
asked, what's the first step to someone who wants to do dream yoga?
Oh, okay, wonderful. Well, the first step, you're almost answering it yourself, is really wanting to. Intentionality. It's huge. It may seem like, again, I can't be that simple. It's got to be something more sophisticated. Well, yes, for sure. Dozens of techniques. I've written 3 books on the topic. But the most important thing is just intention. Etymologically, to stretch towards. Stretch your mind towards, like aspiration, desire, in the best sense, not contracting, but aspiring towards. I want to wake up, and then from there, the vast array of techniques arise. Because if it's like Goethe said, if you align yourself, the universe steps in behind you. If you have a really concerted, heartfelt, open, yeah, I really, really want to do this, then it's amazing how the universe will line up on your side, be behind you, for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. If people want to find you, how can they do so?
You're so kind. Yeah, my lemonade stand. I love this part. I have several platforms. Andrew, Holecek.com. That's my main site. This is where all my propaganda, my books, my retreats are listed. In there, you'll also find something we started 2 years ago that we're really, myself and my team and co-teachers, are really, I think, super rich, fruitful training, 8-week training, preparing to die program. I mean, I've worked on this directly for 10 years and indirectly for over 40. It's a really, I think, a pretty well thought out, pretty articulate, solid. And we've had so many people who are literally, some people who attend this class are literally dying. And we get the most amazing things saying, I no longer fear death. So we're really proud of this Preparing to Die program. And then lastly, I started some 8 years ago a platform to support all 5 of the nocturnal meditations. There's 5 of these practices. We playfully call it Night Club. And it's a way where we have sleep doctor, we have induction groups, we have 300 hours of stored content. And then lastly, I have my own podcast platform. I do maybe one every month or so. It's called The Edge of Mind, where in fact, Justin Brewer is one of my guests. So yeah, I think if you can go to probably andrewholecek.com, you'll see everything else I have there. So thank you. Very kind of you to allow me to put up my lemonade stand.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for your wisdom today and sharing it with us for Chung Huong Institute.
Yeah, so trying to thank you so much for your integrity and the love, the thoughtfulness of your questions. It's a delight to speak with someone like yourself, and so it's an honor and a privilege. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.